Most people are not tired because they work too hard. They are tired because they are constantly performing. Performing to be liked. Performing to be accepted. Performing to be validated. Every post, every opinion, every achievement becomes a silent question. Is this enough for you to approve of me? This is the hidden addiction of our time. Not money, not fame, validation. You don't fear failure. You fear disapproval. And the moment your mood depends on someone else's reaction, you have handed them authority over your emotional state. The Stoics warned about this long ago. If you depend on what is outside your control, you will never be free. True power begins the day you stop asking the world for permission to feel worthy. Seeking validation feels harmless at first. A compliment feels good. Recognition feels motivating. But slowly, something shifts. You begin adjusting your behavior not based on what is right, but based on what will be applauded. You soften your opinions. You silence your doubts. You hide your ambitions, not because they are wrong, but because they might be rejected. The more approval you get, the more you need. And soon, your identity becomes negotiable. This is the trap. When your self-worth is outsourced, it fluctuates with every comment, every like, every expression on someone's face. The Stoic mindset teaches the opposite. Character is internal, reputation is external, and confusing the two is the beginning of inner instability. There are two kinds of authority in your life. External authority says, you are valuable if we say so. Internal authority says, I decide my worth through my principles. One makes you reactive, the other makes you stable. When your authority is external, criticism feels like destruction. When your authority is internal, criticism becomes information. The Stoics believe that your judgment is the only thing truly yours. Not praise, not status, not applause. When you anchor your value in your own standards, you stop chasing validation and start building integrity. And integrity does not beg to be seen. It stands quietly, even if no one claps. The desire for validation is not weakness. It is human. From childhood, approval meant safety. A smile meant acceptance. A nod meant belonging. Your brain learned early, if they approve of me, I am secure. But what kept you safe as a child can keep you small as an adult. Because now, approval is no longer about survival. It is about ego. And ego is fragile. It panics when ignored. It burns when criticized. Trembles when overlooked. The Stoic approach is not to suppress this desire, but to understand it. When you observe your craving for validation, without obeying it, you begin separating impulse from identity. You can feel the urge to be approved without rearranging yourself to get it. And that separation is the beginning of freedom. When you live for applause, you must constantly perform. And performance is exhausting. You cannot relax. You cannot contradict yourself. You cannot evolve publicly without fear of judgment. You become a carefully curated version of yourself. But here is the hidden cost. You may gain approval, but you lose authenticity. You may gain followers, but you lose inner clarity. You may gain praise, but you lose peace. The Stoics believe tranquility comes from alignment. When your actions match your principles, you are stable. When your actions match expectations, you are fragile. The world's approval is loud, but your conscience is quiet. And the quiet voice is the one that determines whether you sleep peacefully at night. Reputation is what others think about you. Character is what you practice when no one watches. Reputation can change in a moment. Character is built in silence. If 10 people misunderstand you, your reputation shifts, but your character does not. The Stoics warned against confusing visibility with value. You can be admired and corrupt. You can be criticized and honorable. If your peace depends on reputation, you will constantly defend yourself. If your peace depends on character, you will constantly improve yourself. One seeks to control perception, the other seeks to control behavior. And behavior is within your power. When you invest in character, you build something no opinion can erase. That is internal authority. That is unshakable strength. One of the strongest chains of validation is the fear of being misunderstood. You want to explain yourself, to clarify every intention, to make sure no one thinks the wrong thing about you. But here is a hard truth. You can explain perfectly and still be misinterpreted. The Stoics accepted this reality. You control your actions. You do not control interpretation. Trying to manage how everyone sees you is like trying to control the weather. Exhausting, pointless, unstable. When you accept that misunderstanding is inevitable, you stop overperforming. You speak clearly, you act honestly, and then you let go. Not because you don't care, but because your worth does not depend on universal agreement. Peace begins where the need to be fully understood ends. If you stop seeking validation, what replaces it? Standards, not emotional reactions, not public opinion. Standards. Internal authority is built by defining what kind of person you choose to be. Ask yourself, what behaviors do I respect? What principles do I refuse to compromise? What habits align with my values? When your standards are clear, decisions become simpler. You no longer ask, will they approve? You ask, does this align with my code? This is how you move from reactive living to intentional living. Without standards, you drift. With standards, you direct yourself. And direction is far more powerful than applause. Emotional dependence sounds dramatic, but it often looks subtle. A delayed reply ruins your mood. A cold tone changes your confidence. A lack of praise makes you doubt yourself. Your emotional state should not be that fragile. The Stoics practiced emotional independence, not by becoming cold, but by becoming grounded. They understood that emotions are influenced by judgments. If you judge silence as rejection, you suffer. If you judge criticism as attack, you react. But if you judge events neutrally, your response becomes measured. Emotional independence is not numbness. It is stability. You can appreciate praise without depending on it. You can hear criticism without collapsing under it. That is strength. Quiet, controlled, internal strength. When you seek validation, you over-explain. You justify decisions. You defend boundaries. You clarify choices that were already clear to you. Why? Because somewhere inside, you are asking for approval. But maturity means accepting this. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you. Some are uncomfortable with your growth. Some benefited from the version of you that no longer exists. The Stoic response is simple. Act with reason. Speak with clarity. Then stop. You do not need universal agreement to move forward. Silence, when rooted in confidence, is not weakness. It is restraint. And restraint is power under control. If you remove external validation, you must replace it with discipline. Self-approval is not ego. It is accountability. It means asking yourself daily, did I act according to my values? Did I respond with integrity? Did I improve, even slightly? When you measure yourself by effort and principle, you create stable confidence. Not inflated pride. Not fragile ego. Stable confidence. This type of confidence does not collapse when ignored. It does not spike when praised. It remains steady, because it is based on behavior, not opinion. And behavior is within your control. The Stoics focused on what they could govern: their thoughts, their actions, their discipline. Everything else was secondary. Many people live as if they are constantly on stage. They imagine critics watching. They anticipate judgment. They edit themselves mid-action. But here is a liberating realization: most people are too busy worrying about themselves to analyze you deeply. And even if they are watching, their opinions are temporary. Living for an invisible audience creates constant tension. Living by internal direction creates calm. When you let go of the audience, you move more naturally. You speak more honestly. You act more decisively. You hesitate less. The Stoic mindset teaches detachment from spectators. Your role is to perform your duty well, not to control the applause. Focus on the work. Let the noise fade. One of the strongest signs of internal authority is the ability to be disliked. Not because you are rude, not because you are careless, but because you refuse to betray your standards for approval. When you stop seeking validation, some people will feel uncomfortable. Why? Because they were used to a version of you that was easier to control. The moment you say no without apology, the moment you disagree calmly, the moment you stop over-explaining, you will lose some approval. And that is not loss. It is alignment. The Stoics understood that living virtuously does not guarantee popularity, but it guarantees self-respect. And self-respect is far more stable than admiration. If being liked requires you to shrink, being disliked might be your growth. When you no longer crave validation, your reactions change. You don't rush to prove yourself. You don't interrupt to defend yourself. You don't argue to win approval. You listen. Silence becomes intentional, not insecure. The insecure silence waits for permission. The confident silence needs none. The Stoic practice of restraint was not about suppressing emotion. It was about mastering response. Every moment does not require commentary. Every criticism does not require defense. Every doubt does not require explanation. Sometimes the strongest move is composure, because when your identity is internal, you are not threatened by noise. You observe, you decide, you respond only if necessary. That is control. Validation feeds ego. Internal authority feeds principle. Ego asks, how do I look? Principle asks, is this right? Ego seeks admiration. Principle seeks integrity. The problem with ego is that it constantly compares. Who is ahead of me? Who noticed me? Who ignored me? Principle does not compare. It commits. When you shift from ego-driven living to principle-driven living, your energy changes. You stop chasing recognition and start building consistency. And consistency builds credibility. Not the kind others give you, but the kind you feel internally. When your focus becomes doing what is right, not being seen as right, your confidence becomes unshakable, because it is rooted in action, not applause. Validation is often tied to outcomes. If they praise me, I succeeded. If they approve, I did well. If they recognize me, I matter. But Stoic philosophy separates effort from outcome. You control preparation. You control discipline. You control intention. You do not control reaction. When your peace depends on outcome, an external event dictates your internal state. When your peace depends on effort, your stability remains intact. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care about the right things. Focus on doing your work well. Focus on acting with integrity. Focus on showing up consistently. Let the results unfold. Because once you detach from needing applause, you free your energy for mastery. And mastery is built in private, not in comment sections. Real confidence is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek reassurance. It does not panic in silence. Insecure confidence is loud. It demands recognition. It checks reactions. It scans for approval. But grounded confidence comes from repeated proof to yourself. You kept your word. You held your boundary. You stayed disciplined when no one watched. This is internal authority in action. When you validate yourself through action, you stop broadcasting your worth. You no longer need to convince people that you are capable. You simply continue being capable. And over time, consistency speaks louder than validation ever could. Validation and comparison are deeply connected. You look sideways to measure your value. Who is ahead? Who is admired? Who is praised more? But comparison creates dependency. If someone rises, you feel smaller. If someone falls, you feel temporarily bigger. That is unstable confidence. The Stoic approach removes the comparison. Your competition is your former self. Your standard is your principle. Your metric is effort. When you detach from comparison, you reclaim mental space. You stop living in reaction to other success. And you start focusing on your own direction. Progress becomes personal. And personal progress is immune to public opinion. There is a difference between wanting validation and needing it. Wanting it is natural. Needing it is dependency. When you need validation, your behavior adjusts automatically. You soften truths. You overextend yourself. You betray small boundaries just to keep approval intact. But when you shift from needing to choosing, everything changes. You can appreciate praise without chasing it. You can hear feedback without collapsing. You begin to act not to be accepted, but because it aligns with who you are becoming. This shift is subtle, but powerful. You no longer ask, do they approve of me? You ask, do I approve of how I handled that? And that question creates internal stability that no external opinion can shake. If you remember one thing, remember this. The world is loud. Opinions are endless. Approval is inconsistent. But your principles can remain steady. You will not eliminate the desire for validation overnight, but you can weaken its control. Each time you act according to your standards, without checking for applause, you strengthen internal authority. Each time you hold a boundary calmly, you grow stronger. Each time you choose integrity over image, you become freer. Freedom is not the absence of judgment. It is independence from it. Stop asking the world to confirm your worth. Build character so strong that confirmation becomes irrelevant. Because the highest form of confidence is not being admired, it is being aligned. And alignment is power that cannot be taken from you.